All right. Again,
Yeah.
thanks, Kim, for playing along here and letting me record our conversation for a second. So again, I asked you, and I want you to repeat your answer. What's been your biggest challenge in your closing percentage, as well as your average order throughout the push period, if you would? Go ahead and tell me.
I think it's been challenging when people tell you everything they're paying for, like sending kids to college and what they're doing with their home right now and like medical bills and stuff. Because then I sit there and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a lot of money. I don't know how to respond to that. So,
Yeah. So you're saying that maybe that's lowered your closing percentage as well as your average order.
yeah.
Right. And if we can increase that to be over, like you're right below 50% right now, and then you want to get over 50%. And our best reps, as you probably have heard and probably have seen in Josh's office, they sell 70% or 80%. And you're like pissed off about it, right? And then your average order is like 140 right now, and we'd like it to be 340 or 440 during the push, right? And even the national
Yeah.
average is almost 300. So you're about half the average national average right now. So thank you for again playing along. And so I'm glad you asked, and I'm glad you're sharing that with me, because I don't want to prescribe a drug for you that you don't need. I don't want to give you the cure to a disease you don't have. So I want to tell you. I've been having some conversations that are very similar to this in my office with people in our office that are doing well, but they could be double or triple in their results. And so I figured I could share some thoughts. And so first thing is, it's not so much, you said, what do I say? What do I say to that when they give you that, we're doing all this renovation? And the answer is actually, you're going to be hating me for a minute when I say this, is the answer is what you say is actually in your manual, right? It's the knee-jerk reaction, and it's reading it or knowing it and being familiar with it, so you can just respond with, and whatever the knee-jerk response is from page 9 in our manual. And by the way, SC2 is going to absolutely blow your mind. You're going to learn, one of the talks is handling major objections. So you're going to get those nuggets at the conference. It's going to help you immensely as far as how to or what to say. But just as important as what you say, because 7% of what we communicate is our words, and what you say is your words, okay? But 38% of what you communicate is your voice, okay? And then 55% of what you communicate is in your body language. And so I want to kind of put a little philosophy in. 80% of what your success winds up being in life is really your philosophy or your psychology. What you think is more important than what you do or what you say. What you think drives what you say. What you think communicates more than what you say. It's what you think. So, let me put it in perspective. When I make a purchase, I do the same thing that those customers do, is I weigh all of bills and blah 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 against whatever I might be purchasing, but it's actually not the case. Let me rewind and say it differently. Here's my mortgage, right? This is a big bill every month. That's one of the biggest checks any person writes every month, is their mortgage check. Then there's insurance, and insurance is car, health, homeowners, dental, and there's one other one I can't think of, insurance. Whatever it is, I forget. There's like usually four or five insurance. Whether it comes out of my check as a homeowner or as an employee, or whether it goes, whether I write a check or whether it comes out of my check, I write my mortgage check, I pay my insurance bills, and then I pay for electricity, gas, water, sewer, trash, phone, internet, cable. So like the average home has like 8 utilities. Sometimes they're lumped together, but there's like 8 utilities, and then there's a cell phone in there too. So there's like 9 bills. And so there's those bills, and then there's groceries, right? And the average United States Department of Agriculture said the average family spends over the average family of four people, a mom and dad, and then 2 kids. The average family spends $1,287 a month on groceries. Okay, so what we're talking about is a mortgage that's anywhere from $1,300 to $1,700 is the average mortgage check in the United States, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so like 1,400 bucks, $1,500 for that, $1,400 for groceries, 1,300 bucks for groceries. So that's like almost $3,000, and then you got like $1,000 worth of insurance per month, counting car and everything else, and then you got like $1,000 in other bills, maybe. Let's say it's $4,000 or $5,000. And you multiply that by 12 months, and that's like 60 grand a year. And the average, median household income in the towns that you and I live in is 70, 60, whatever, 80 grand or whatever it is. So I want to make it clear that as a mortgage payer and a homeowner myself, I pay all my bills, bam, 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 and there's this, and then there's this money that's left over. And the money left over could be $200, it could be $7,000, it could be $20,000. Whenever someone says they can't afford Cutco, all they're doing is they're weighing this much money that's left over against 261, or I guess it's 268 for you per month, in a homemaker, whatever that your payment is, and because your Spokane tax is different, 265 or whatever. So they're weighing that money that's left over against 265. And it could look like this. This is the homemaker, this is what's left over. They still may not want to do that. Okay? But I want to make it very clear. What's wrong in most reps' psychology, like I said earlier, it's their psychology. It's not what they say, it's how they say it. Is if you say 265 to you, you're like, oh my gosh, if I had a $265 bill, if I got that bill in the mail, or if I got a speeding ticket in whatever Washington that would give me that big of a speeding ticket in freaking whatever that town is on the way to Seattle, you know what I mean? Where they just peg all the Spokane people, that are going to Seattle, right, and getting crazy speeding tickets. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember. But anyway, so when they're like, when you get a bill for $100 or $200 or $300, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in the poorhouse. My cell phone's going to get shut off. I don't have enough money to buy groceries. I don't know how I'm going to pay my car insurance and buy gas. You're freaking out about $265. But in reality, your customers already paid their bills. Okay? They're paying their bills so much to the point, Kim, that they're doing renovations on their kitchen. They can afford to renovate their kitchen, or feel like they can afford to renovate their kitchen, meaning even if they're getting a loan out, like they're doing a home equity loan or whatever, they feel like they can afford to renovate their kitchen. By the way, are the cabinets falling off the walls in these homes? Like, are they falling off the wall? Like, oh, we need new cabinets because they just fell off the wall. No, the cabinets are in perfect condition. They're working just fine. The floor is not falling through the ground. The floor works fine, but what do? They want new floors. They want new cabinets. They want new sinks. They want new appliances. And they rationalize with you that, oh, we can't afford to spend $1,000 on a homemaker, or forget that, $260. Right? They can't afford to spend $260 because they're spending $25,000 on a new kitchen. And let me ask you two questions. First of all, if they can afford $25,000, can they afford $1,000? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And they can afford can they, if they can afford that, can they afford $260? Yeah. Right? Yeah. And let me put it another way. If their kitchen that cost $25,000 to renovate cost $612. In other words, if it was $1,212 more, a homemaker, right? If it was $1,212 more, would they say, oh, we can't buy a new kitchen now? Or would they still buy another kitchen?
No.
Yeah, they buy a new kitchen. So again, in your mind, you have to flip the switch that you're not selling to you, who would freak out if you got a speeding ticket. If you went over on your data, if you still do that anymore because they have unlimited data, but if you went over on your data on your cell phone, you got a $50 addition to your phone bill. You're like, oh my gosh. You know what I mean? You call and you yell at Sprint and tell them they're horrible people because you went over on your data. You know what I mean? Like, you're freaking out over $50. And that's what I'm saying, is that your customers, when they go through all these bills that they have, medical bills and insurance, and they have these, new kitchens to buy, and they're going on vacation. The fact that they can afford to go on a vacation, you know how much a vacation costs with 5 kids, 6 kids, 2 kids? It's like $5,000. okay, to drive to Disneyland, to stay there a week, to do the hotels, to buy the funnel cakes, to buy the park hopper passes, to do all that stuff and get the hats and the t-shirts and go out for a dinner because you don't want to eat the nasty food at the park anymore. So you want to go out to dinner. So you go out to dinner to some other place and you spend a whole bunch of money and then you go to a movie in freaking California. It's like $30 a ticket, you know, and to do a cheap vacation to drive to Disneyland is like $3,000 to $4,000, right? And they're going to do that for 1 week. And they're going to hate their kids, and their kids are going to hate them, and their kids are going to hate each other for this long freaking road trip. By the way, if they fly somewhere, it's an extra grand. Right? They fly to Vegas, they fly to Arizona, if they fly somewhere, Hawaii, they're going to spend a fly to Alaska. It's still $1,000 to fly your family somewhere. So they're going to spend $4,000 or $5,000 on a week of aggravation, and they love their family, but they also want to shoot them at the end of the week, right? And that's a vacation, okay? And they spend $5,000 on that. Tell me a homemaker isn't worth at least 12. Do you see what I'm saying? So when they're saying, "Oh, I got to spend this money," and "Oh, I got all these bills," all they're doing is that equation I just gave you right here. Oh, we got all these bills. We got this much left over. Here's the homemaker. Boom. We got to decide if that's a worthwhile purchase. You with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so if that's the case, right, and we gotta kind of go quick here, but if that's the case, it's not that they can't afford it. What they're doing right in front of your face, Kim, is they're weighing the price and the what?
And the value.
Yeah, they're weighing the price and the value. That's all they're doing. They're just weighing the price and the value. But they do it verbally, vocally, in your face. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's so much money. I couldn't handle that. But the fact that they're doing it means they can handle that. Otherwise, they wouldn't have that objection. And all they're doing is they're justifying the value against the price. So what you say matters, yes, it does, but how you say it. If you respond with, well, we do have the galley. It's a little less. You know, and you have like this deer in headlights. Don't, maybe starter sets, don't hit me. Okay? Like if you're afraid to tell them about the starter sets, do you see how that's really the problem versus... Yeah, it's not showing the starter sets. It's the fact that you show them the starter sets and you're like afraid to show them the starter sets because you're like, oh, that's so much money. Let me promise you that as you show the starter sets or as you show the galley set and you're like, hey, no problem. I totally understand. A lot of people have felt that way. Here's what we found is that the galley set is actually a few less knives, look at my face, for a lot less money. You still get this. You still get this. You restack the value. You still get the paring knife for the air. You still get the sandwich maker. You still get 6 table knives. You can live with 6 table knives, right? Yeah, you could probably live with 6 table knives. And you know what? Instead of being $1,212 like the homemaker plus 8, it's only $874. And on payments, it's only $189, and you write it down on the piece of paper. But see the facial expressions, it's only $189. It's like you're saving the day with the galley. And then you go and then if they don't get the galley, let's move on quicker, and then you say, hey, we got our starter sets. These are probably better for you anyway, because it's the pieces you would absolutely use the most on your day-to-day, week-to-week cooking. And so you show them all and you say, which one's better for you? And then you only tell the price of the one they like. Don't tell them 8 prices, just this one set that they like. And they're like, oh, that, and you're like, how about this one? And they're like, okay, right? And how you respond is 2 things. Your philosophy is what you can afford is who cares what the heck you can afford. You're not selling to you. You're not trying to make a sale to you. Your customers is who you care about and what they can afford. If they can afford a vacation, if they can afford medical bills, which, medical bills are never fun. But, if they can afford to, have a new kitchen, if they can afford, they just spent $1,200 on this, or they just spent $5,000 on a new hot tub, they just spent $5,000 on a new wave runner, or a new this, or an old, or a used, whatever, we got to pay for this. We got to pay for Johnny's wedding. Oh, really? You know, doesn't the bride's parents pay for that? You know, and if they can afford for their daughters, pay for their daughter's wedding, let me promise you, they can afford a homemaker if they can afford for their daughter to get married. You know what I mean? Because that's, you know, it's a lot larger expense. We got to pay for Billy's college. Oh, really? You have enough money to pay for your son's college when they should have paid for it themselves? Don't say that, right? But you just got to be thinking, oh, well, if they can afford to pay for their son's college, they can definitely afford $200. And it's not so much what you say, even though what you say is in your manual and you need to say what's in your manual. When we say follow the manual, we're not joking around, right? And we wouldn't put it in the manual if it didn't work. If it didn't sell us a lot of Cutco as a company, we wouldn't have it in the manual, right? But it's what you think. What you think matters and how you respond. Like their bills are way more than what a homemaker costs. Their bills are way more than what this 3-piece special on a 3-month plan costs $60, right? And so even if it's a small order or a big order, and I guess the last thing I'll say is make sure you're building bigger like lists. Even if they don't buy the bigger like list, Kim, it's really hard for me to justify buying 2 knives that cost